This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob gets nostalgic. Eve gets the let out. Barb goes all the way up to 6. And Tim gets a new title. I'm your host. That's not the title. But I am your host, Tim Farley. And this is our panel for this week.
I am the host. I'm the symbiont.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Howdy.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. Let me retweet that. Okay. And let me introduce the panel, which is our usual thing. And I've got my monitors way too far apart right now. This is our panel for this week. First up is Bob Blaskowitz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Skepticality contributor.
At your service.
We have Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality and Insight at skeptic.com.
At your own risk? No. This
We
is
have
not cute.
Barb Drescher. Watch it, I'm going to mute you, Bob. Barb Drescher, former psychology instructor, blogger at ICBS Everywhere, and contributor to skeptical projects such as Insight at skeptic.com and The Odds Must Be Crazy. And me, I am Tim Farley, creator of What's the Harm, former JREF fellow, and now a prize-winning Instagram photographer.
Woo!
No one knows what prize I won, even me, because it's being mailed to me. It's probably
It could just be a lamp.
Yeah, something like that. We'll talk about that later. I'll explain what that means. But if you're watching us live on Wednesday, you can ask us questions in the YouTube chat or using the Virtual Skeptics hashtag on Twitter. We have no trivia question this week, so we're going to go right into Bob's segment.
All right. Actually, there will be some trivia.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's
Barb,
one of your quizzes, isn't it?
it's one of my quizzes. With 40 years after Voyager was the Voyager missions were launched. That's it's 40 years yesterday. And to celebrate, of course, you're going to do a quiz.
About
Obviously.
the contents?
So, well, no, not about the contents. That would be too obvious because we know that. So, September 5th. 1977. Picture it. September 5th, 1977. Like a golden girl, right? What was the #1 song in America when the Voyager 2 launched? Voyager 2 was the first one to launch, then Voyager 1.
Do we get a multiple choice?
Yes.
Because I can think of many.
Okay.
And the first ones that pop into my head, I'm too embarrassed to say.
You're thinking the theme song to Shaft, aren't you?
No.
Earlier.
So
Actually, I was thinking much worse than that.
so was it the Bee Gees' "Staying Alive"? Was it ABBA's "Dancing Queen"? Was it "Best of My Love" by the Emotions? Or was it the Bee Gees' "You Should Be Dancing"?
I'm going to recuse myself because I think I heard you researching for this.
I'm going to say Dancing Queen.
I'm going to say Staying Alive.
Boom, 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 boom. It's the "Best of My Love." It's the only one I didn't recognize.
The only one you didn't recognize?
No, when I listened to it, I recognized the bass line and had heard it sampled in lots of other stuff, so it's very famous. Just I didn't know who had done it. You know. Okay, so Voyager 1 on March 5th, 1979, flew by Jupiter. What also happened in that same month of March 1979? Was it the Archie Bunker finale? Was it the launch of C-SPAN? The Price is Right moved to its current 11 a.m. Eastern slot? Or This Old House premiered?
Wow. Oh, man, that's tough.
I think that's too early for C-SPAN. I'm going to say This Old House.
I'm tempted to say Archie Bunker, but it's March, and usually the seasons didn't start ending until like May. So I'm gonna go with Tim on this one. This Old House.
Okay.
Something else. I choose a different answer just to be interesting. I'll go C-SPAN.
Okay. In March of 1979, C-SPAN launched. Archie Bunker. You were right, Barb. The finale was later. It was in April. In February, This Old House premiered. Yeah, sorry. So it was all really right around that time.
Thread the needle right there.
Yeah.
Well, I have no intention of letting you, win. So,
you might even get one correct, unless it was
well, you have a 1 in 4 chance. Come on.
Yeah.
So, no. Okay, this is. I like this one. On November 12th, 1980, Voyager 1 zipped past Saturn. That year, which was the winningest film at the Raspberries?
Oh, boy.
Was it Blue Lagoon? Was it Xanadu? Was it The Jazz Singer? Or was it Can't Stop the Music?
Ooh, that's hard.
I know. Don't think, wow, ouch. And also, that hurts. And no.
Can't Stop the Music, I'm going to say.
I'm going to say Blue Lagoon.
I thought Blue Lagoon and Xanadu were just a little bit earlier, but now that I think of it, maybe not. I'm going to say Xanadu.
Okay, you are all wrong. It was The Jazz Singer, which got 2 Razzies. Yes, it got 2.
Terrible.
Not the original Jazz Singer. That was earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
And less bad.
The worst actor was Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond remake thing.
Yeah.
And worst supporting actor, Sir Laurence Olivier.
Yes, famous for the line,
Wow.
It's not bad enough being a chew.
So I guess does that put him on a rarefied list of people who have won both the Razzie and the Oscar?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's
Actually, that's a longer list than you might think.
I mean, Halle Berry, didn't she like Catwoman and all her good work?
Monsters Ball is what she won the Oscar for.
That's right. Yeah. So I think that there are more people in that than you would think.
Yeah, I think there's only one person
as much as you would.
I think there's only one person who's won a Nobel Prize and an Ig Nobel Prize, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I know this and can't think of it.
Yeah,
same here.
I have to look up his name.
Not Linus Pauling.
No, it's a current guy. His name is Andre Geim. Geim.
Is he the hair bounce guy?
He was the guy who levitated a frog using superconducting magnets. That's not his Nobel Prize winning.
The Nobel Prize in frog levitation.
Yeah, no, that was big.
Because that would change the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was nice enough to show up and receive his Ig Nobel.
That's awesome. That's great. So all of those were 1980 Razzies winners. The Blue Lagoon, Brooke Shields got Worst Actress. Robert Greenwald got Worst Director for Xanadu. And
that was a bad one.
Got Worst Picture. That was Gene Kelly's last movie, wasn't it?
What?
Xanadu?
Was it?
What was the Gene Kelly roller skating? It was Xanadu, wasn't it?
Probably. Yeah, I think he was in there.
Okay, so
now I have to look it up because it'll bug me otherwise.
The 24th of January, 1986. Which medical achievement was also from that year? Was it the first corneal laser surgery? Was it the invention of the kidney dialysis machine, the last case of smallpox, or the invention of the MRI?
What year was this?
What was the year?
86.
Oh, it's not smallpox.
Could you repeat the
Corneas.
Cornea surgery, laser surgery, kidney dialysis machine, MRI, and smallpox.
I'm going to go with the cornea surgery.
I'll go with MRI.
Eve?
I said corneas already.
Oh, okay. It was the first laser cornea surgery. The MRI was invented in '85. So yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised that it was that late, but that recent. But and the dialysis machine, I thought that was much older.
That seems recent for dialysis, but holy mackerel.
Yeah. So all right, so Voyager 2 went past Neptune on the 25th of August, 1989. Who was on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue in 1989? Oh, you should know this, Tim.
Donald Trump.
Was it Cheryl Teague? Was it Kathy Ireland? Was it Elle McPherson? Or was it Rue McClanahan?
What year was it? 89?
89.
I'm going to say Cheryl Teague.
Kathy Ireland.
I'm going to say Cheryl Teague.
It was Kathy Ireland.
I got one right.
Dominated the late 80s and early 90s and most of my adolescence. So we do the
and Rue McClanahan for that last bit.
Rue McClanahan. And so Rue McClanahan's body paint. Oh, that was great. So I'm doing the numbers, and it turns out we all lose.
That makes sense.
So that was fun. So the little walk down memory lane.
All right, good one, Bob.
Yep.
Who's next? Me? I'm next. And I'm just going to talk about Dragoncon a little bit, which was this past weekend. For those of you who are not familiar, Dragoncon is one of the larger sci-fi, fantasy, comic book conventions that's held in the United States. It's gotten somewhat ridiculously huge. 60 to 80,000 people over the course of a 5-day weekend on Labor Day weekend. And it's always funny because it takes over several of the downtown hotels, but there's always a bunch of football games the same weekend in downtown Atlanta. This year at our new ridiculously expensive stadium that we just built. And so you have this weird confluence of football fans and nerds smashed into a tiny space,
releasing nothing but pure energy.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Dragoncon, it's a bit different. If most people are familiar with San Diego Comic-Con because it's become big business and a lot of things get announced there, and you see panels and you see news stories being broken from about entertainment news, at least from San Diego Comic-Con. Dragoncon's a bit of a different animal where San Diego Comic-Con is all about the exhibit hall and the professional exhibitors. Dragoncon's all about the fans. And in fact, a large amount of the programming at Dragoncon is put on entirely by volunteers. And they have all these different track rooms. So they have a Star Trek room and a Star Wars room. And what goes on in those rooms is determined by the fan coordinators for each track. And that 10 years ago started to expand into things like science and podcasting and space, which are natural, extensions. They were already doing a podcast award, I think, for a couple of years. And so they added a podcasting track. And then, of course, science is a natural. And they added a skeptics track run by Derek Colanduno of Skepticality. And they still have it. And it's still one of the largest tracks. It takes over one whole section of the hallway at the Atlanta Hilton. And they have programming the whole weekend, and a whole bunch of people from the Skeptics track participate in the Dragoncon parade. And there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and they had a bunch of different guests. I was running around to a lot of different things, so I wasn't in the Skeptics track a ton, although I was on one panel on Sunday on the future of skepticism with Brian Brushwood and Ben Radford and Cara San Maria. And so that was fun. And then, of course, the big thing at Dragoncon is, or at least one of the things I find a lot of fun with, is looking at costumes, because people create these amazing, these are not Halloween costumes. These are amazing replica costumes.
These are works of art they've spent the last year working on.
Yeah, many of them multiple years. And they'll have lights and moving parts, and sometimes there's a whole squad of people in matching costumes. There's robots and the whole thing, and literally some of them are indistinguishable from what you see on film. And if you look in my Twitter feed over the weekend, or Instagram, or
lots of slave Leias.
Lots of I actually didn't see a bunch of any slave Leias this time. It's interesting. It would be interesting. It's impossible to get
Wonder Women.
There were a lot of Wonder Women. That's for sure.
I don't know if that's the plural.
Yeah, well, it is now. So, and the reason my lower third and my intro said award-winning photographer is on Sunday, I think, I took this picture in the lobby of the Atlanta Hilton, and that is a person in a costume with another person behind him. And these are characters from Underworld, I think. Kate Beckinsale with vampires and werewolves, and he's a wolfed out werewolf and she's a vampire. Anyway,
that's a really cool costume that he's got.
It is a neat costume, and I sort of caught it with some interesting lighting there. And anyway, the Atlanta Hilton was running a contest where if you hashtagged your photos with Hilton Atlanta, you could win a prize, and they picked me as one of the winners. So
I
can now say that I am a prize-winning photographer. I have no idea what the prize is. They're mailing it to me. So it might be a key ring. I don't know.
So is this, how much of this is prosthetic? Could you tell?
I saw that guy later, and he had taken the costume off, and it comes off in pieces. So like the arms are one piece, and the chest piece is another piece, and I guess the legs are like pants. And you can kind of see his sneakers sticking out underneath the feet. Down there, if you look carefully.
I can't see the bottom, but
sorry, because we got our heads down there. But at the very bottom of the photo, his feet with claws, and then you can see something sticking out underneath them, and it's the shoes that he's wearing. But yeah, so it was designed to be able to be taken on and off. You have to. It's off. It was quite pleasant this year at Dragoncon. We're sort of getting a kind of a coolness peripheral effect from Hurricane Harvey. It wasn't actually raining here, maybe a tiny little bit one day, but it was cool in Atlanta. Like, I don't think it ever got above like about 85 the whole weekend.
Wow.
And most of the middle of the day, it was like in the 70s. So it was very pleasant, which is helpful when you have to, duck outside to shortcut around the outside of a hotel. And for somebody like this, his costume is, it helps if your costume
might save their life
to be able to take it on and off fairly easily. You don't want something like a Hollywood costume that takes 6 hours to put on, and you have to destroy it to take it off.
I was always impressed by the awesomeness of the parade, which anybody can attend.
Yeah.
You get to see these amazing, like, one year there was someone who had built just this like life-size dragon that would spit smoke rings, and like this guy had been working on this forever in his garage and was now taking it out. Like, it was so cool.
Another the other thing that I like quite a lot is people trying to find sort of new things to do costumes of, and a lot of them will be mashups of different characters.
Mashups.
So I didn't see it myself, but my wife ran into a guy who was split down the middle, and half of him was dressed as Weird Al Yankovic, and the other half was Edward Scissorhands.
Weird Al Scissorhands?
Yeah, it was Weird Al Scissorhands. And a couple of years ago, there was a Weird Dalek. So, like, from the waist up, he looked like Weird Al, but from down below, he had that kind of conical base that the Dalek has, and he sort of matched the colors so that it all looked like it was one thing. And then we spotted from afar a Darth Bender and Princess Leela. So it was Bender from Futurama, but painted shiny black with a cape, and Leela,
my magnificent ass.
right, and Leela, the one-eyed alien from Futurama, Princess Leia costume. But I saw several people tweeting, and Jessica actually ran into the guy. One of the things that has become an interesting thing in the last few years is people figuring out how to incorporate costumes into their wheelchair, so that a wheelchair person.
Oh, I heard about this
participate.
And this strollers are really good too.
This guy built an entire, those old-fashioned wizard coin-op machines that would do your fortune, Zoltan, the fortune teller. So he himself was the fortune teller. So he would pretend to be mostly immobile, as if he was a mannequin. But the entire wheelchair was enclosed in the machine, and the thing worked. You could put a coin in, and a fortune would come out, and the fortunes were all things that were con related, like you will be torn between two panels and disappointed with the one that you choose to go to.
Oh.
Or you will be caught in a giant long line to see William Shatner or something, something that related to the con. Well, what was nice was
and likely to be true.
He had a sign. Yeah, and he had a sign on the front of the thing that all the coins you put in would go to a disability-related charity that he was collecting money for.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
that was a very
awesome.
Cool. It looked like the fortune teller in Big. I thought that's what.
I was gonna say, just don't wish to be
Zoltan.
Big.
Yeah. I'm sure that was the inspiration of it. And there was another person dressed as the More You Know public service thing from the
that's great.
NBC PSA announcements, and she had a bag of fortunes too, and she were not fortunes but factoids. So she had all these little factoids from comic books and sci-fi shows, and you would greet her, and then she'd pull one out of the bag and hand it to you, and it would just be some random fact about Batman's car or something. Yeah,
that's great.
Well, I wish we knew somebody who somebody there who would invite us down. That would just be,
you're welcome to come down.
Talk to Derek about doing a show down there.
Someone who's in charge of Skeptrack.
Yeah,
someone with
you don't get invited to Skeptrack. You don't get invited to Skeptrack. You talk to Derek about the.
I know. Yeah. We should do that. We should do a.
The real tough part is getting a hotel room.
Yeah. We stopped. Jess and I used to actually get a hotel room, but the hotels seemed to have some combination of the competition between the football and Dragoncon and the growth of Dragoncon and the hotels just getting wise to the fact that they can get away with it means the hotel prices have just gotten ridiculous.
Well, you have to, if you don't have a room, you can't book for the next year. So I stopped going last year, was the first year I didn't go for like 8 years. And so I lost my room.
Yeah.
So getting it back would mean I'd have to go through guest services at the con, and they really don't like to hand out their rooms, but they've given it to me in the past, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's very hard.
If I go back,
if you do have to come in from out of town and you need a hotel room, you do have to plan ahead. So like literally you should be thinking about DragonCon 2018 now, or like in a month or two when they
that's just to get a room in the city. I mean, that's
right.
Getting a host hotel is not remotely possible.
And unfortunately, it would be helpful if our subway system actually ran 24 hours, or if they would extend it during DragonCon, because then No, I mean it runs past midnight, but a lot of people like to stay up and you know, because dance parties and stuff going on well past midnight, and it.
Drinking with celebrities was popular, if I remember correctly.
If the subway was open way late at night, you would have a lot more hotel options that would be very easy for people. They could just jump on the train because the train runs right next to one of the hotels.
Yep.
And you jump on the train and go north or south, and you could be at the airport or whatever. We just stay at home now because we have a dog, so we can take care of him and then head down. And so we pay for parking instead of hotel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe next year we can do something, and maybe somebody can stay in our guest room that we have here, which is right back there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was about it. It was a good Dragoncon. There were a whole bunch of skeptic-y sort of folks around.
Did you see the Novelli in there?
Oh, I forgot to mention that. I should have thrown that photo up. It's on my
In what? I haven't
Instagram.
seen this.
The novellas came dressed as the Princess Bride.
Oh no, really?
Characters from Princess Bride. It was really good.
Yeah, it was Andre the Giant. Bob was the Dread Pirate Roberts, and one thing that I thought was clever was Steve was dressed as basically the grandfather,
white-haired
grandfather reading the book to his kid, to his grandson.
Although, to be fair, Peter Falk had not gone that gray.
Yeah, I should have put that.
Oh, that's awesome!
Isn't that cool? It's a great idea.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, let me grab that up here real quick.
And you're
There's some good ones in here.
That the tiger that was shot in Georgia today was really a tiger and not just someone dressed as a tiger going home from Dragoncon.
Yes.
Excuse me?
There was a tiger wandering around Georgia.
No shit.
No shit.
Are you sure it wasn't a furry?
There's the novellas. Whoops. Well, stop. Oh my God, Windows, please. I just want the window there. I don't want it snapped. Okay.
That one.
That's them. That's Jay in the back. He's actually wearing lifts in his shoes to make him taller. And Bob's on the right, and that's Steve in his hat. And then Steve's with his daughter, I think, and that's Steve's wife. To his immediate left is the King.
Prince Humperdinck.
Prince
Humperdinck, yeah.
Humperdinck, that's right.
And that's Liz Gaston as the princess there.
Who's
some of you might know her as
Inigo.
Is that the other daughter?
I think I don't. Yeah, I don't know everybody.
Must be. She looks like the other one.
I think that might be Jay's wife. Oh. I'm not sure.
But yeah, that's a great get up.
Yeah, it was a good thing. Those group costumes are always hard when you've got, trying to figure out who you have in your group and who you can fit and whatnot. Here was a Wonder Woman. As you can see, she's completely accurate. She's lifting a 500-pound weight there with just one hand. This was, I don't know what this was, some sort of thing where some guy's doing a movie where he's combining bodybuilding and cosplay or whatever, but this was clever that he had this basically movie prop set of weights. It looked really realistic. It looks like a real set of weights, but it's obviously like 10 pounds. So people could come in their superhero costume and lift it. This was Taco Bell. If you look at her desk carefully, it has meat.
That makes
sense. Out of it.
Yes.
Oh God.
That's very cute.
I posted, I said, oh, look, it's Taco Bell. And then in the Facebook thread, you could tell someone was getting offended. It's like, why is she Taco Bell? And someone said, look at her dress. And it's like, oh, I get it now.
Very good. Very
like,
good.
People are so quick to get offended about things. It's like, no, I'm not going to say something like that. Oh, that was the panel I went to. These were some characters from Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Super awesome stuff. Let me show you some of the others. These were some matching dresses. Some of the Skeptic crew you may recognize. A Real Girl and Cy Curious there, and Maria Walters. The Spaceball.
He's surrounded by assholes.
So some Daleks. There's always a few Daleks around. This was one of several Dr. Octopuses. Rocket Raccoon. I spotted.
That's pretty good.
This was somebody was selling wigs, costume wigs in the dealer's room, was doing a live, like, honest to God Hollywood makeup demo. So she was putting this makeup on whoever that is under there. There's that photo again. This was a Real Girl arguing with Mayor McCheese. That's Mayor McCheese is actually Kishore Hari. He does science communication stuff in San Francisco. He runs their science festival, and you may see him sometimes on tested.com. And I think he's the host of Inquiring Minds now, one of the hosts. But anyway, I didn't see it, but later that night they ordered a whole ton of cheeseburgers from McDonald's, and he was handing them out to his constituents. Which I thought was funny. Kind of brilliant. I don't know what these are, but they look cool. This guy. There were a lot of people with stilts this year for whatever reason, and this guy was up on stilts, so he was on this boat, but he was like way up above you, no matter how tall you were. And
I can't even imagine trying to navigate that crowd and stuff.
No way.
There were people. There was a lot of. They had a DJ in the Hilton lobby, and there were people dancing on stilts in their costume. It was pretty amazing. And there's the dude with his.
There he is with
Marriott
his
carpet.
From the Marriott.
really,
really ties the place together.
We were talking about it before we went on the air. If you haven't been to Dragoncon, that weird, annoying rug pattern that he's holding there, it used to be the carpet in one of the hotels and became legendary because it was so ugly. And then people started making costumes that matched it, and then the hotel took it out and replaced it with something else. And so now it's become sort of a legendary symbol of Dragoncon. This is Maria again with Scott Sigler. Participating in, I don't know if any of you have ever seen this, but it's they do it up at Convergence every year, and this was the first year they did it at Dragoncon. It's called PowerPoint Karaoke, and the idea is you come up on stage with it's kind of like improv comedy, but it's around PowerPoint, in that you come on stage with a topic, and you are then given a set of slides that you have never seen before. And you have to do a presentation on your topic, but somehow incorporate in whatever weirdness shows up on the slides. And the slides, they claim the slides are pulled randomly from other PowerPoint decks, but clearly they have been manufactured to be as humorous as possible, because there's graphs that make no sense, and just weird stuff on the slides, and it's pretty funny. When it was a fun night, and they were basically making fun of Maria and Scott were making fun of business jargon. So they even had T-shirts where they were supposedly from a company called Limitless Limited, and they were going to tell us how to maximize our synergy or something like that.
I think, by the way, Maria, of the various overheard at Dragoncon, my favorite came from Maria, which was something along the lines of, "No, I have a poncho for my tail in case it rains."
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
This was one of the good presentations. I've heard about this before, and this was the first time I'd seen a presentation on it, and I think I'm going to dig further into it. But it's a really interesting thing about, and it came out of a philosopher in Portland's book, Boghossian's book.
Peter.
But basically, the idea is that if you try to like debunk people face to face or confront them with their bad ideas, you get, there's all these psychological reasons why people push back and they get mad and cognitive dissonance and all that stuff. So his idea is don't even try to confront them on their ideas. Just have a Socratic dialogue with them about how is it that you came to know this thing.
That's not actually all that original. It's very Jungian in nature. I mean, it's there's a ton. If you look this stuff up, they call it street or Rogers. I'm thinking of Rogers, actually.
They call it street epistemology, and there's a ton of YouTube videos. And he showed one during this isn't Boghossian. This is a guy by the name of Anthony Magnabosco, who does it a lot. And very friendly and nice. He asks people permission, and he videos it. And of course, you don't have to video it. The idea is that skeptics could go out and do this. And he had an interesting thing about saying that, you're not there to convince somebody. You're just there to put a little stone in their shoe that maybe might make them think about it later. And he showed a video where in the course of a 7-minute conversation, he asked the person what they wanted to talk about, and she picked karma. And at the beginning of the conversation, she said she was 83% sure that karma was real. And then he asked her a bunch of questions about how she believes it's real and what about this and have you ever considered this? And at the end of the conversation, she said she was only 53% sure that karma was real. And that was in a 7-minute conversation.
And it makes a lot of sense
in it.
Because you need to give people a way to save face, and kind of walking them through a path is much better than
and just get them to think about it a little bit, because so many people believe things without really thinking about, well, why do I believe this? Where did I get this idea from? So it's a really interesting idea, and there's a ton of stuff on YouTube about it. This was
that's awesome.
Some little googly eyes. There's a whole thing. Will Wheaton's wife pushes this online called Vandal Eyes. Vandal Eyes. Anyway, this was, if you've ever been to Skeptrack, they do a really quite elaborate video setup where they video all the presentations, and it's gotten even more elaborate now where they have 3 cameras and they're all remote controlled using joysticks. So their 3 cameramen sit at those 3 joysticks in the largest portion of the photo, and then they have a director sitting behind them with the other videos, and in the lower left you can see the remotely operated cameras, so they can actually do close-ups and everything just by sitting there and wiggling sticks and pressing buttons. It's pretty slick. This was a panel I attended where they picked their topics by rolling that giant 20-sided die. It was just kind of bizarre. And that was about it. That's the big chicken. So I will surrender the floor. I've spoken way too long. Let's see. Who is...
That was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I recommend if you're interested in skeptic, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, pop culture, just about anything. I mean, they had things like they have all sorts of stuff at Dragoncon, so read about it online, and there's probably something that would interest you at it. So next up is Barbara. You're up.
Well, I'm not talking about anything quite nearly as fun. I'm going to talk about Irma.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You should be preparing for, since she's likely to head up the coast.
Yeah, probably rain here.
Yeah, you'll probably catch some rain. So the reason I'm going to talk about Irma is a few days ago, as it started to, become clear that we were looking at another hurricane. So the fake news comes out. And one of the first things that people noticed was this, if you bring up the first slide, this fake graphic showing that
Oh yeah.
Irma was projected to hit Houston head on.
Boy.
So
30 days out.
this went out, and it quickly became viral, of course, scaring the crap out of people. And it's a modified from another map, so it's fake. The National Weather Service actually put out this map, including a tip for how to spot a fake. Notice the real projection maps don't usually go beyond 5 days because they're so unreliable past that.
Right.
Because weather is such a chaotic system. We're lucky we can even project that far out. So another viral piece of info, thanks to sources such as Alex Jones, suggested that Irma would become a Category 6 hurricane. But there is no Category 6.
But it's one more.
Yeah, it's somehow scarier.
Yeah.
It's somehow scarier than the massive destruction that a Category 5 hurricane emits. I mean, come on. So yeah.
Didn't Alex Jones also suggest that it's was like possibly deep state created storm?
No. I'll get to that.
Okay.
There are videos circulating which purport just today that show up that purport to show Irma hitting land, in various places where it has already hit. And if you look at those videos, they are, at least you can find them online posted from like at least a year ago. So it's just funny, anything that's going to grab attention, people pull out the fake stuff and start. I'm sure that posting a video from a hurricane a year ago and saying it's Irma is probably going to get you a lot of hits, and that's probably why people do it. But
I'm just going to post Sharknado.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the next slide, this is the obligatory.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Shark
shouldn't be photo. Yeah.
Yep.
But there was so those. I'm waiting for those to pop up. They popped up after Harvey. They have not popped up yet for Irma, but at least one picture of Irma from space has shown up and has proven to be a picture of Harvey from space.
One hurricane's very like another.
Yeah. On the flip side of this, and kind of ironically, since it's sites like InfoWars that were creating all this panic, saying that it's going to be a Category 6 and blah blah blah, it was Rush Limbaugh who suggested.
Beaten with sticks.
He suggested that Irma is being exaggerated by the media as part of a liberal hoax.
Okay, you go down there and experience liberal hoax, motherfucker.
Go to Barbuda. Yeah.
He says that it's he claims the liberals are hell-bent on proving climate change, and therefore we have created this mass hysteria over these storms.
Talk about what's the harm. I mean, can you imagine somebody who listens to Limbaugh deciding not to evacuate based on that?
And that's
killed?
What gets me. That's what gets me. I mean, these are people that, Trump has disparaged the mainstream media so much that conservatives there are plenty of places for conservatives to go that are full of absolutely batshit crazy conspiracy theory crap and stuff like this, where they'll tell you, well, it's really not that bad. It's just a liberal thing. They're trying to prove climate change and so forth. And yeah, and you know what? People have tried to explain this to me, but I still don't understand what they think liberals have to gain from promoting the concept of climate change as being real. What do liberals have to gain?
General evilness?
The increased regulation and control over other things.
Anti-capitalism. They want to. Liberals want to destroy the oil industry and
what do liberals have to gain from doing that? I mean,
Because we hate capitalism.
Yeah,
We want to see giant
Okay.
companies brought to their knees.
okay, I can see people
also sometimes
believing
the
that.
idea is to they're worried that we're going to lose sovereignty by subjecting ourselves to foreign entanglements.
Oh,
There's that.
FEMA. There's the FEMA death camps also, and you know, with the body bags.
They'll be run by Halliburton.
Yeah.
And on one level, and obviously this isn't the wider thing of liberals in general, but sometimes you hear the argument that it's the scientists pushing it simply to get their next grant for their next study.
Yeah,
which is
to study something that
If
doesn't
climate
exist.
change isn't real, then they're not going to get a grant to study climate change. So they fudge the data.
Because there's nothing else to study.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, nonetheless, even before climate change raised its ugly head, there were such things as hurricanes, and sometimes they were devastating.
Yep.
So it's possible a hurricane could be devastating without it being a liberal hoax. As for instance, there are now pictures and video real ones coming out of the Caribbean. There's that one little island that just sort of went silent for several hours
it was cowardly.
Total devastation, I believe.
Just before I came in to get on the show, they still hadn't heard anything from that little island. So
no, they have.
Barbuda.
Yeah, they have now.
Yeah, I saw a drone picture, set of drone pictures, but
like 90% of the buildings and vehicles are damaged, if not destroyed.
Yeah.
But it's a false flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're not looking at the 10% that aren't totally destroyed, Eve. That's what the liberals aren't showing you.
Yeah, and it's a crisis palm tree.
That's right.
I saw that exact same palm tree in another video. Therefore, it must just be an actor. Man.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So, well, disasters bring out the best and the worst in people.
But then there have also been the conspiracy theories that it's some sort of weaponized, man-made storm also. Which, as I understand it, if you're not a Bond villain, they're actually kind of hard to make.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. It's it's an old trope. And it's some of the ways that these environmental conspiracy theories go are just totally fucking bonkers. Like most of them are. I remember the when we had the Horizon, what was it called? The Gulf spill?
Horizon.
Deepwater Horizon. The right was pushing it as it would have been sabotage by environmentalists to destroy the Gulf.
Okay.
For reasons. I mean, it's just and you're just, apparently to get increased regulation of carbon emissions or something, but we have to sacrifice the Gulf to do it. Just like, you hurt me with your ideas. Yeah.
Oh,
well, that's all I have. That's all I have.
Yeah, I saw
more than enough, Barb.
There was an article in Ars Technica that was making a more subtle point about a common mistake that a lot of, or at least 538 had made this mistake, and there was someone who was actually a meteorologist wrote an article in Ars Technica. It was one of these, please stop doing this, where apparently a number of news organizations had noticed that there are a number of different models and tracks that people use to generate potential tracks for the storms. Yeah. And so what they'll do is create a graph that shows all the, here's what NOAA says, and here's what the European agency says, and here's what the Navy says. Mm-hmm. And he was pointing out that if you actually look at where all these data sets come from and what these models are, they're really apples and oranges. and you can't compare them that way. You would think, looking at it, that somewhere in the middle of all those spaghetti tracks is probably the most likely course, and it's not, because some of that data is really good and some of it is terrible.
What I've noticed today, following all the news about it, is I have seen graphic after graphic after graphic of like 20 models all put on the same graph.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually useful to tell the story from different perspectives, to say, well, this model says this, and this model says this, and this model says this, by doing that. But curate your models.
Right. One of the mistakes he was pointing out
there.
One of the mistakes he said that they were making commonly is they would put on the same graph a line that was plotted using data that was hours different from the data used in a different model. So like this model had been run 2 hours ago, and this model had been run 12 hours ago. Well, that's like forever in hurricane time. So you really can't compare those tracks at all, even minus the differences in the two models. Because they're working off different data.
It also gives people the false idea that the truth is somewhere in between.
Right.
And that's just not the case.
Yeah. Yep.
I hope more
it's not an average of. Well, we'll see.
Actually, last time he was hit with a hurricane, he made $27 million on insurance.
Oh, some building he owns has already gotten hit by the hurricane, I think, because he has a mansion out in the Caribbean somewhere.
Oh well.
I'm weeping.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
All right, Eve, I think you're up.
Yep. Well, last September, a pair of Connecticut parents brought their 9-month-old baby in for a routine health screening. And she was found to be anemic and to have a blood lead level of 41 micrograms per deciliter. The CDC recommends intervention when a child has a blood lead level of 5 micrograms per deciliter. And 41 micrograms is a much larger number than 5.
That's some astute math.
Yep. Yeah. There may be more.
Oh dear.
Local public health officials went to inspect the home and try to find the cause of this rather alarming lead poisoning. Epidemiologists found 2 interior window wells with peeling lead-based paint, but it seemed unlikely that an infant would have had access to that area. Moreover, the baby's 3 older and presumably more mobile siblings had blood lead levels under 3 micrograms per deciliter. The parents then reported that the baby had intermittently worn a homeopathic magnetic hematite healing bracelet. You could bring up the first slide. This is going to be a picture of the homeopathic magnetic hematite healing bracelet. They had bought it from an artisan at a local fair. And they'd given the bracelet to the child for help with teething discomfort. And the parents had observed her chomping on it from time to time, because that's something babies do. Yep. They're worse than puppies, as I understand it.
And not as cute. Let's face it, babies are ugly little eggplant people.
Yeah. Now, I know what you're thinking. That must be a hell of a magical healing bracelet. I mean, first of all, it's homeopathic. That's magic. I mean, water with no active ingredients that will cure any ill. Totally magic. And somehow they've managed to get water in that bracelet.
They dipped the bracelet in the water, and the bracelet remembered.
Right. Which, again, magic. Totally magic. Then fucking magnets are so magical that they have baffled some of the world's greatest scientists throughout history, including even these guys, if you can bring up the next slide.
Oh, snap! They're back. What's up, ninjas?
Yeah, and hematite, according to Livestrong, is said to bring peace and dissolve negative energy into love. In ancient Egypt, it was used to stop blood flow and remove poisons from the body, according to the same source.
Stop blood flow?
Yep. Not, I mean, presumably outside the body, not
flowing
Okay.
out.
Oh, so
because, yeah. I didn't say it was particularly well written.
yeah.
And furthermore, the iron content in magnetic hematite will cure blood pressure disorders and kidney problems. It is said to be effective in healing pain because it maintains the charge of nerve cells.
Does it only act in the passive tense? Which is said to.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that actually even means. Also, magnetic hematite will regulate the blood flow in the body. It is also used to cure and relieve headaches and anemia. Additional physical benefits include relief from cramps, spinal problems, and fractured bones.
Will it relieve the headache that this marketing copy is giving me right now?
Yeah. And that's just the beginning. You won't believe what it does for your chakras.
Oh,
and
boy.
this, by the way, on Livestrong, which is, isn't it that aimed at cancer patients?
Mm-hmm.
It used to be
I don't know.
the
Yeah, I
Lance
think so.
Armstrong
I thought it was
thing.
a general kind of wellness, healthy
Perhaps.
eating thing.
So anyways, the combination of homeopathy and magnetic hematite must make this bracelet supercalifragilisticexpialidociously healing. And it was probably only the magical properties of the bracelet that saved the child's life. Obviously, it kept her anemia in check, so it didn't become fatal. And it
Super anemia.
Yeah, and it removed the lead from her body. Okay. She had a lot of lead in her body. But if not for the bracelet, you could sharpen her head and call her a pencil. And yes, I know that's graphite. But no, you'll be amazed to discover that it was the bracelet that was the problem.
Oh my God!
No, I know,
Really?
it's true. According to testing at the Manchester Health Department, the little tiny spacer beads were positive for lead at a level of 17,000 parts per million. The allowable limit for lead in products intended for children is 100 parts per million, according to the standards set by the Consumer Product Commission in 2010. Now, again, 17,000 is much larger than 100. A lot.
Usually.
Yeah. There were no...
That's like 5 times as much.
At least. Yeah. And there are no identifying marks of metal content on the beads, and the bracelet maker couldn't be located because some fair somewhere.
Right.
Now, most lead poisoning arises from oral ingestion, usually of lead paint, dust, or contaminated soil. However, many cases of acute lead poisoning are from non-paint sources, including jewelry. In 2003 and 2006, there were a number of cases of severe poisonings and even deaths from jewelry or charms, leading to mass recalls, and I believe also leading to the 2010 standards. So, ultimately, don't shove some bauble you bought at a fair into your baby's mouth, no matter how homeopathic it is. And I know, lead is natural. And natural is almost always good and benign and wonderful and everything. But, maybe in this case, you should find a nice plastic teething ring made from chemicals.
Chemical.
Oh my gosh. And with just a little bit of education and taking it to heart, it's completely avoidable. You know? Was the vendor selling it for children? Or was that the parents' great contribution to medical science?
I'm not sure. The articles I read, and I read one that was on the CDC site, which I think is the source for all the others. They don't mention that. There is the picture of the bracelet. I think the size, it's not on the wrist. But I would imagine the size of it would suggest.
Oh, yeah. Those little bits should be.
It wouldn't fit, probably, if it weren't baby-sized.
Yeah. I've seen lots of teething bracelets for babies. But,
yeah. And I'm not even sure if it was specifically intended for teething either. Although I know there have been incidents before of things that were supposedly intended for teething being quite bad for the babies.
Well, look at it. I mean, if that thing breaks...
Yeah,
that's totally
a choking hazard, too, yeah.
Yeah. I had... this will explain a lot. When I would go fishing, we'd have little lead weights. And
you ate them? Like popcorn?
No, you didn't eat them, but you press them. You might press them with your teeth to the little Pac-Man looking weights. You or pinch over to fit them to your line. And it's sweet, and I can see a kid becoming fascinated with that texture. You know, very easily with lead. Just such a bad idea.
Yep. So they never tracked down the vendor to let them know that they were selling lead to people?
Yeah.
That's bad.
Oh, wow. Freaking Ren fairs.
I seem to recall that some of the cases in 2003 and 2006, my memory is that some of those came from China.
Wasn't there lead in like formula or in bottles or something?
No, that was melamine or something else. Okay. But I think there were
also
charms and things.
There's also a thing that comes up every once in a while with amber teething bracelets, which is there's some non-science based thing, pseudoscience-y thing where they claim that amber is better for kids who are teething. And I don't even think they're supposed to chew on the bracelets. I think it's supposed to be the fumes from the amber or the amber against their skin, or who knows what the hell it is. There's no basis for it. But part of the problem was the bracelets were made in such a way, first of all, that the kids could choke on them.
Yeah.
And chewing them was not good. And there were little pieces that could come off and
because
it's on those and
resin and brittle, more brittle than the plastic ones that are made for the purpose. Also, you ruin the amber. Amber's not cheap.
Right. Yep.
And where are you going to get your dinosaur DNA if the baby slobbered all over the amber?
Yeah. Some sort of horrible chimera. A dinosaur and a baby. Babosaurus Rex.
Speaking of, apropos of nothing, but speaking of dinosaurs, I was in a Home Depot this afternoon, and you can buy plastic skeletons now of all sorts of things for Halloween, and I guess that's coming up, so they've started to stock up on this stuff. So they have like a horse skeleton and a dog skeleton. They have plastic dinosaur skeletons in Home Depot to use as a skeleton display for Halloween in your yard, including a 9-foot-high skeleton of a T-Rex.
That's impressive.
Glowing
I was thinking
LED eyes, and it makes a noise. And it's
what does that thing cost? It's only $300.
Yeah,
and it's 9 feet high.
Yeah,
you should bury it in your yard and get the kids. Now there's a business near where we are that for some reason is not out of business. That seems to be the whole purpose is to buy enormous, hideous things for your lawn if you
Yes.
really, really hate your neighbors. Like a huge inflatable chicken.
No, that's
Oh,
metal,
yeah.
Eve. That's
it
not
metal?
inflatable. That's a metal chicken.
All right, it's a metal chicken. It's an enormous metal chicken.
Yeah, that's not inflatable. Yeah.
I mean, I guess not. I thought
That's
it
all
was
this,
plastic.
Metal chickens are
Insane
metal chickens are
statuary.
a thing. They're
Yeah.
a thing.
But it's huge. I
It's
mean,
as big as a Volkswagen
house.
Beetle
it's
on
yeah,
legs.
it's
Wow.
yeah, enormous
And
and horrible, hideous,
ugly.
dumb.
What do
And
you
there's
have
a whole
against
bunch-
chickens, Eve?
Nothing. They're delicious. I wouldn't put
But
one in
not
front
when
of my
metal.
Yeah.
see our house if we put this chicken in front of
We
it.
could move into the chicken. It's so large.
Yeah, really. It's a commodious chicken. It's just not a phrase you hear all the time.
Yeah, that's my my Oingo Boingo cover band.
Commodious chicken. Nice.
Crowded house.
All right. So, do we have any announcements?
No.
Don't think so.
I got nothing.
I won't be here next week.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Back to school night.
All right. We doing book time? Who has a book?
Sure. I do. Okay. The oddity of Angeline is as obtrusive as the breasts in her 85 by 44-foot portrait near Hollywood and Vine. In that 1987 mural, as in subsequent Los Angeles billboards, Angeline is leaning back under her own giant pink name, looking out from behind sunglasses and from under a bleach blonde hairdo, one shoulder bare, Dolly Parton chest pushed front and center. She acts like a celebrity, according to Los Angeles Magazine, stopping for any Kodak-ready spectator, effortlessly gliding through her repertoire of softcore poses, signing scores of autographs on a never-ending supply of full-color picture cards, adding a kiss to each, leaving her perfect pink lips imprint. Yet Angeline has never done anything noteworthy beyond the attempt to have note taken of her. According to People magazine, she is untalented by her own admission and has nothing to offer but her inflated billboard-sized image.
Bob?
Rendering the internet intelligible was the primary concern for journalism at this time. According to Cockburn and St. Clair, 1998, web series coincided with the coming of age of the internet, end quote, when the establishment press had to, quote, face the changing circumstances of the new business in terms of registering mass opinion and allowing popular access. Webb's story was a sign of the, quote, looser standards that came with online journalism and constituted a danger to traditional investigative journalism.
Eve?
A large Christmas tree stood in the lobby, and there were decorations, fir branches, and glittering baubles all around. Silent night, holy night, over an invisible sound system. A large shuttle coach stood in front of the hotel, and a group approached the reception desk. Tourists who were planning to spend Christmas and the New Year in Iceland because it seemed to them like an adventurous and exciting country. Although they had only just landed, many of them apparently already bought traditional Icelandic sweaters, and they checked into the exotic land of winter. Erlander brushed the sleet off his raincoat. Sigurdur Oli looked around the lobby and caught sight of Ellenborg by the lifts. He tugged at Erlander, and they walked over to her. She had examined the scene. The first police officers to arrive there had made sure that it would remain untouched.
Let's see. A sheet of paper has two sides and a single edge that runs all the way around it in the form of a closed curve. Can a sheet of paper have a single edge and only one side so that an ant can crawl from any spot on the paper to any other spot without ever crossing an edge? It is hard to believe, but apparently no one noticed the existence of such one-sided surfaces until a band with a half twist was described by August Ferdinand Mobius, a German mathematician and astronomer who died in 1868 in his Werke, Volume 2, 1858. Since then, the Mobius strip, as this surface came to be called, has become the best known of the many toys of topology, that flourishing branch of modern mathematics concerned with properties that remain invariant when a structure is given continuous deformation. Barb, what was yours?
Mine is Claims to Fame, Celebrity in Contemporary Culture by Joshua Gamson.
Neat. Bob?
Zach Bradish's Conspiracy Panics, Political Rationality, and Popular Culture.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Eve?
Voices by Arnaldur Indridason. And a Reykjavik thriller.
Thriller.
Yes,
And,
it's Nordic noir.
I've used this one before. This is Martin Gardner's Mathematical
Oh, I
Magic
have
Show.
that.
Yeah, I bought this at a estate sale in our neighborhood for $2. It's a good one. All right. So nothing left to do. No cameras behind me.
No.
There's a dog behind me.
Yeah.
You can't see him.
Yep, saw him come in.
All right. So let's get ready to dance our way out. The Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of What's the Harm.net, Skeptical Humanities, Brian Gregory, ICBS Everywhere, and Doubtful News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com. Our theme music, which you are hearing now, is by Musicant and is used with permission.
Is that dancing, Barb? It looks like you're kind of going down a drain.